So this trial is on something called the Budapest Memorandum, and I'll bring up the trial, I hope, for a minute. So I think I've just brought up the trial.
Yeah, I'm seeing your screen.
And this is was the basis for Ukraine giving up all of its nuclear weapons in 1994. Based on an assurance from Russia, the Russian Federation, the United States, Great Britain, and oddly Ireland, that they gave assurances. And what we're basically doing is we're going to try the idea that these assurances, particularly Russia's assurances, were a lie. In other words, they were not true. And so what I'm going to do is kind of go over the memorandum.
Bob, you have two new people here also.
Okay.
Juror 5 and Juror 7.
Okay. So what I've done is I'm sharing the Medium article I wrote about a very short period of time ago, 3 days ago, or whatever it was, a few days ago. And on this topic, which was I had found the original PDF of image of the original Budapest Memorandum, and I OCR'd it and then put it into the full text so that people would have full text that they could copy and put in places and do whatever they wanted. The trial is really about my belief that that while Ukraine was telling the truth, the USA was telling the truth, Great Britain was telling the truth, and Ireland was telling the truth in this memorandum, Russia was lying. And their full intention was to basically come back and take over, actually violate their promises in this memorandum. So I think everybody can see the memorandum right now. And what I was surprised to find was the memorandum was so short. So it's a very simple, straightforward memorandum. And the trial is really about Article 1 of the memorandum. So these are, there's a lot of people on the internet have referred to this memorandum, and then they've lied about it. In other words, they've said things that are not true about the memorandum. But if you read the memorandum, it's pretty friggin' clear. And so Article 1 reads, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and the United States of America reaffirm their commitment to Ukraine in accordance with the principles of the essentially CSCE Final Act, to respect the independence and sovereignty and existing borders of Ukraine. Boom. that's what these guys all said they were going to do. They're going to respect the independence of Ukraine, its sovereignty, and the borders that existed in 1994. And what we saw later was that Great Britain in 2014 or something basically invaded the borders. They took over Crimea and started the war to take over. And then in 2022, they mounted an effort to completely destroy the independence and sovereignty of Ukraine, as well as violate all of the other borders of Ukraine. So there was one place in the sort of the lies that appeared in the medium, in the social media, that said that no, this whole agreement was just about nuclear, only if nuclear weapons were used. That's not true. There's one article in here, which is Article 4, which says the Russian Federation reaffirmed their commitment to seek immediate United Nations Security Council action to provide assistance to Ukraine as a non-nuclear weapon state party to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. If Ukraine should become an act of aggression, a victim of an act of aggression, or somebody aggresses on Ukraine, or, which is a separate thing, an object of a threat of aggression in which nuclear weapons are used. In other words, the idea is that, which is my plain interpretation of this, is either somebody did a military aggression against Ukraine, or somebody threatened an aggression against Ukraine, but used nuclear weapons as part of the threat of aggression, okay, or the act of aggression. So it didn't require that nuclear weapons be used before this whole memorandum, because none of the other articles in the memorandum refers to somebody using nuclear weapons as all of these, each of these articles stands on its own. So that's sort of my argument. And so what I'm going to do is go over the my verdict that I put in here, and I'll share that. There it is. So this is my verdict, which so the proposition that I'm trying is that it's a lie that the Russian Federation affirmed their commitment to Ukraine to respect the independence and sovereignty and the existing borders of Ukraine. In other words, they said that they would do. They said that they basically, with no time limit, they will always respect the independence and sovereignty and the existing borders of Ukraine. So that was the deal, that they would do it. So Ukraine would give up its nuclear weapons, and Ukraine did, in fact, give up all its nuclear weapons. Confirmed by both the United States and Russia. Is it the truth? So I said that this was a lie. Russia was lying. So is the truth? I said, no, it's not the truth. is it the whole truth? And I said, it did sign the memorandum affirming its commitment with no time limit or anything. End of story. Is it the whole truth? No. There was a secret. They did not intend to. They didn't take. They lied. Okay. And there was stuff that they were doing that they were not going to put in the conditions under which they would feel that they would have a right to invade Ukraine. That should have been in this memorandum, and it's not. So there's a problem with the whole truth. Is it nothing but the truth? I said no. It's clearly they never intended to follow or outright intended to abrogate Ukraine. So I believe that the Russian Federation just tried to make sure that Ukraine had no nuclear weapons and was pretty much willing to say anything to get it, which is makes it a lie. So what's the deceit? The deceit is that the lie is manipulating. This is what they intended. Is the deceit intended? I think, in my opinion, there is no question that they intended this deceit. What's the motivation behind the truth or lie? The motivation, in my view, was to buy time until they could conquer and absorb the lands of Ukraine, which they successfully did. I mean, so they've now attacked and tried to absorb all the lands of Ukraine, and it took them 10 years to do the initial attack and another 10 years to do the full-on attack, but they've now done it. What's the social acceptability? This is about as unacceptable as it ever gets. This is equivalent of an oath signed by the Russian Federation, which the Federation failed to affirm. It doesn't get any worse than this. What label would improve that it's a lie? It's true that it's a lie, but it's manipulating. And if everybody agrees with me, this will be the first time everybody's agreed to it with me. Which is interesting because it's never happened before. So I'll stop sharing this guy, and I'm going to go through each of the jurors and ask you to give me a 20 or 30-second summary of your verdict. And particularly if you disagreed with something that I've argued here, this is one of these that I don't regard as a highly technical. The language was plain English. It was, and by the way, in the memorandum, there's a Ukrainian version of the memorandum and a Russian version of the memorandum where they additionally agreed that the different versions mean exactly the same thing, so you can rely on the English version. So I think juror one may not be here. I can't. Is juror one here?
Yes, I am, but I don't understand why I am juror one. Am I not supposed to be juror two?
I don't know.
Robert, can I ask why?
Yeah.
Why do you think that practically not a single commentator, modern commentator, I mean, a contemporary commentator on YouTube, ever mentions this 1996 agreement?
I think they never read it.
It goes on and on about the iniquities of the invasion, but nobody mentions the accord. I mean, what's going on? Why is it not in
I
public
think people
consciousness?
think that first of all, finding the court, finding the memorandum, you have to look for it a little bit. It's only in image form, and I think they never read it. I think they just never read it. They just assume that somebody else had read it, and they're getting the information from somebody else. In other words, I think what happens is people just don't read these things, and it didn't, but that's what I think, as best I can figure. So, juror one,
May-
can you give us a summary before I get to Brian here?
Okay. I think a country, or at least their head of state, needs to be held accountable for going against the word bluntly, because it was an unprovoked it was an unprovoked atrocity. Because what's the next commitment they're going to break? It might be even worse the next time.
Yeah.
Putin at least needs to be held accountable at the World Court so he can address this properly. Because I don't feel like he was ever put on the stand.
That's interesting. So, Brian, you have your hand raised.
Yeah. Number one, Putin bad, given. Okay. But I want to point this out. In 1994, Boris Yeltsin was the premier of the Russian Federation. Putin was at that time in St. Petersburg city administration, and he took over the leadership of the Russian Federation in 1999. So what we have here, I agree 100% reneging on a contract. It's terrible, it's awful, it's bad. What do you think about a change in national policy? Does that comprise a lie?
So they
Or
had
is
an
it just saying,
opportunity. No, they could have come in and said, announced to the world before they invaded Crimea that and taken it to the United Nations and said that we've had a change in national policy, and we're going to violate the Budapest and attack Ukraine.
yeah,
That's the proper thing that they could have done. Instead, they lied. They pursued. They kept the lie going. So yeah, Yeltsin was but Putin, if he really wanted to do this, he should have dissolved the federation and
yeah,
created a new entity, and then everybody
yeah,
would have known that the Budapest was not valid anymore.
yeah. I
And
mean, you can't have national policy just reneging on agreed upon international agreements just because. I'm with
just
you
because,
100%.
yeah. So that's my argument, and I think that this was that's the reason I think that they knew they were lying. So who knew they were lying? So I don't believe that Yeltsin thought he was lying. Okay, I think he thought he was telling the truth. Okay, but I just bet you money that that'd be a nickel, by the way. I bet you money that that uh, that other people in the Politburo or whatever it is in the Kremlin were willing to agree to anything to get the nukes out of the hands of the Ukrainians so they could later invade Ukraine. Simple as that. Let's see. So is juror 3 here?
I don't see anything. Is there not a juror 2, Bob?
I don't have a juror 2 for some reason.
Okay.
So I think juror 1 was saying he was juror 2, and somehow he got made juror 1. I can't explain that, but so I don't
Okay.
see a juror 2.
And I'm not seeing nothing for juror 3.
Okay, juror 4.
I am present. I do agree that it was like, how can I say, geopolitical strategy, you know. I feel that Putin had planned this to denuclearize Ukraine. That was the plan all along, because we can see that he went against the Budapest Memorandum, despite sticking to, like, saying they're not going to go against it. They went against it, you know, without like you alluded to earlier, without going down avenues to resolve it or dissolve it. They went against it completely. So I feel like it was strategic to get the nukes out of Ukraine.
I think, yeah. So I think within Russia, there were some people who agreed to it, but fully just to get the nukes out of Ukraine so they could later invade. And other people were probably like Yeltsin, and I think that Yeltsin was probably quite sincere as a human being. You know, he signed it. He signed it on behalf of the Federation, but he believed that it was good to get the nukes out, but he didn't believe that it would be appropriate for the Russian Federation to violate the Budapest, to later violate the Budapest thing. So I mean, I don't know that much about Yeltsin, but I from what I saw of him in that period, I think he personally, you know, believed what he signed, or believed that what he signed was true, even though he probably knew that there were some other people who wanted to get back the Soviet Union. The Juror 5.
I am present. I agree. Because in 1994, Russia promised to respect Ukraine independence and borders if Ukraine gives up its nuclear weapon. But in 2014, Russia took control of Crimea and supported fighters in eastern Ukraine, breaking that promise.
Okay, so yeah, so we're in agreement. So 7,
You not have 6, juror 6?
6, 6 here. I'm not showing 6. I wonder,
Okay.
can you delete yourself being a juror? Because originally there were 8
You can
jurors.
resign. You can
That's what
resign as
happened.
one.
So 6 must have resigned and 2 must have
Resigned.
resigned.
Okay.
I'm betting that's what happened.
Okay.
So 7.
On the point that you have made regarding the withdrawal, I think someone suggested that Russia should have withdrawn from the Budapest Memorandum. I had a question, as in, what would the substantial effect be of them withdrawing from the Budapest Memorandum in terms of Ukraine? Like, how would that change the situation
so
currently
what?
at hand?
Well, what would have happened was if they had withdrawn, probably that would have caused Ukraine to appeal to both the United States and Great Britain to protect Ukraine. They would probably have asked to join NATO, because now they were in major fear. That would put them in major fear of being overrun. So the right answer is that it was not in Russia's interest to tell the truth if its purpose was to take Ukraine. And
I also think that one of the biggest issues is the lack of enforcement that international contracts and international law has. Because if you do indeed reach a contract of that nature, there's not really anything that the supernatural powers can do in order to punish or restrain you besides sanctions, which is quite concerning.
Yeah,
And
so-
with the whole thing of them intentionally planning in 1994 to take over Ukraine, I'm not sure if I entirely agree with that, because there's been a change of leadership. In 1994, it was Yeltsin. In 2010, when they took over, it was Medvedev. Medvedev currently is Putin. So I don't know if there was an intentional lie in the beginning when they signed the agreement, but I think there may have been a deliberate effort to collude and, take over Ukraine.
Yeah, I did. It would. Yeah. So this is an interesting. This is an interesting. What I was saying is that I don't believe that Yeltsin, who was the then premier, whatever, president of the Russian Federation, that he was lying for himself when he signed, and he signed for the Federation. So the Federation was bound by it. But I do believe that it's very plausible that there were some Russians in the Kremlin, or the Politburo, whatever, that that did agree to sign that in order to buy time, and so they were lying. So there was lying behind the signing. It may not, but and then there was massive lying once Putin was in place and was planning the takeover and did not act to notify the world. So what's interesting is that the signators are the only ones that signed that contract, but part of the contract was to take any aggressive action to the United Nations, which I believe they did back in with Crimea. But you're right, the United Nations really couldn't do much other than to, you've seen some of the actions, which is the United Nations have, said this is bad, and Putin has been made a war criminal and so forth in the international court. But so that's just sort of the thing. So, Jure.
Hi everyone. I would like to agree with Juror 5 and also Juror 7. I do believe that Russia did violate the agreement and they did lie just so they can buy time for themselves and also just to protect themselves from everything that was happening at the time. And also, but I can't seem to prove that how do we know that they were trying to buy time, because only everything started unveiling years after. As much as yes, it makes sense that they were trying to buy time, but how do we know?
So my argument is that what I'm saying is that some of the people who are inside of the Russian Federation that approved signing the Budapest Memorandum did agree to sign it, but they knew that they were going to want to rebuild the Soviet Union. Okay. And so they knew that it was, from their point of view, they were lying there. And so I'm not saying I'm saying that the Russian government itself was signed the agreement and it's bound by it. And there were sort of two layers of lie. One was there was this one that you can't really prove, but it's very probable that some people were lying who agreed to sign that agreement in Russia. And then there's the second level, which is once they decided to invade Crimea, they didn't renounce the policy that they had signed for the state. In other words, it was not. Everybody thought that these guys had lied or are lying. Okay.
Yeah. But isn't it the case that all the signatories are lying too, because they didn't react when the treaty was broken?
Well, they did. Yeah. So they did react. So there were no security guarantees in this thing. So there was nothing that said if any one of these signatories did this, then there was no security guarantees.
No sanctions of any sort. So in fact, the agreement was
there. Well, there was a sanction in the sense that you could take it to the United Nations, but that was it.
Yeah, when Russia's a member of the Security Council.
And that's why Zelensky today is saying, I don't trust the Russians, because without security guarantees, he's been burned before. And, it's ridiculous.
Right. But I mean, all countries just renege on agreements when it pleases them. I mean, look at Obama.
I don't believe that.
I mean,
I don't.
Look at Trump now on his attitude towards.
Well, so I think that I think that Trump in the last 3 or 4 weeks has now himself caused the United States to violate the Budapest Memorandum. So the U.S. is now in violation of it, but Great Britain is not.
No, not yet.
Yeah, well, they're not acting like it.
Ireland is keeping pretty quiet, yes, but
yeah. I believe that Trump is overtly saying that Russia should keep the land that it's taken so far. Yeah, that's just a downright violation.
Juror 7 has their hand raised.
Not only that, is that Trump is not allowing Ukraine to prevent Russia from taking more, invading more.
Yeah. So Juror 7, you raised your hand.
Yes, I was actually going to comment on the recent actions taken by the United States president, and I wanted to find out whether that would also constitute them violating the memorandum.
Yeah, I think at this point the U.S. has violated the memorandum. I mean, in my opinion, I think that the speech that Trump gave 2 nights ago, he was overtly, and the fact that he's sided with Russia is just as simple as you can. He does not respect the sovereignty, but more particularly, he does not respect the borders of Ukraine, the borders of 1994 of Ukraine, and
which is confusing if you think about his current stance with the borders in America and how he's trying to ensure that their borders are not being invaded by quote unquote foreigners.
Yeah,
so it's quite an interesting thing that's happening.
Yeah, if you read some of my other papers, you'll see that Trump is a sick dude.
He wants to be so pally with Putin. He and Putin to be the rulers of the world. I mean,
right. He's an autocrat. He's trying to destroy the democracy in the United States and turn it into a dictatorship. As simple as that. He's a classic case of that. And he's doing everything exactly the way other dictators have done it. And the process was described by Plato in, over 2,500 years ago, where Plato says in the Republic that democracies fail first into oligarchies, and then the oligarchies will inevitably find a leader who is more fortunate than other people to turn the what was a republic into a dictatorship.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
and then the other thing that Plato says, which it's interesting, they wrote this 2,500 years ago. This is not new stuff. This is stuff that's been replayed many times in the history. The getting the democracy back is really hard. And so once you fail into a dictatorship, getting the democracy back usually requires some kind of major catastrophe. And in the case of Germany, it was World War II. That was the catastrophe, and that brought the democracy back. But in our case, we don't know what the future is going to bring, but it doesn't look good because history says that there has to be some major catastrophe in the United States to bring the democracy back, and there's going to have to be some kind of catastrophe in Russia to bring the democracy back, even though it was only there for a very short period of time in the 90s in Russia. So that's the real concern here, and yeah, I chalk a lot of this up to problems in civic education. People have not been raised understanding democracies and how they operate, and they do not operate like companies. They operate like democracies, like republics, they're always slow. They're always, everybody's always frustrated with them because, you gotta get consensus, and it's not the most efficient way to operate, but it's the only way that preserves the liberty of the people in the country.
And I think the lack of civic education is a deliberate attempt to ensure that people are put in a place where they are unknowledgeable and unable to make decisions that would inevitably change the trajectory of a country.
Yep.
Because when
exactly
people are tasked with knowledge, they're able to even, overthrow governments such as Trump himself.
Yeah, and I think that
it's intentional. It's intentionally distracting people from what's important in order to drive their own agendas.
Yes, that's how it works. And they're willing to lie their little hearts out to get there. And they lie divisively. They do character assassinations, which leads to mistrust of elected authorities and so forth and so on. So you get in, but that kind of lying is fundamental to how you get a dictatorship.
I mean, Bob, I've got to point out here that we're at a point in human history that's never existed before. Not both literally, but also on a number of other levels. Hang on just a second. Okay, never mind. Sorry.
Okay, so the right answer is you're right, and there's a great talk by a guy named Jake Bro, who points out that American democracy, which has survived so long, has been pretty unique, and the technique behind American democracy is very new and novel, and it's very abnormal in the history of humankind to not have countries trying to conquer other countries and physically take them over. And so this idea of respecting the sovereignty and what Jake Bro calls it is a triangle, which is exactly the triangle that's in the memorandum: the sovereignty, independence, and borders. Respect those three things of any other country, and that's what was achieved after World War II for a long time, and is now, in the case of Russia, completely dissolved. And now the United States seems to be participating, which is a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, it seems psychologically all these dictator countries, and a lot of them about the world, have suddenly become very attractive because of the sort of morass of liberality that people can't get their heads around.
Yeah.
They're just modeling themselves on countries that do have this dictatorship. So,
yeah, the Great Dictator film by Chaplin says the right thing. The dictator takes everybody's liberty in order to give himself the liberty that he will not allow other people to have. And that's what dictators are.
More, it's the dictatorship is the sort of is the structure of the criminal gang in which all the loyalty has to feed upwards, and there's no loyalty coming back down.
That's right.
I mean, for example, you compare that with, let's say, a military situation where your leaders supposed to are loyal to their men. I mean, the idea is that if you're a proper military structure, is that the officers and the people who lead the men have their interests at heart, even though they have to fight, and nevertheless still take care of the men. But in the Trumpian vision and the mafia vision, the criminal, it's all the loyalty goes up and there's none coming back down, and that people are dispensed with because it's business or it's utilitarian.
The picture, yeah,
loyalty counts for nothing in his loyalty to you.
Yeah, the picture that's at the top of this Medium article, I think I just shared this picture. Does anybody know what this picture is? I'll tell you what it is if you don't, unless somebody else wants to tell.
Inside the Kremlin, or not the Kremlin, but inside the.
It is inside the Kremlin.
Is it?
And that is Putin. You know who those people are?
The world leaders.
The what?
World leaders in NATO? Or
no, the people in that audience are the oligarchs.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of the invasion of Ukraine.
Oh, okay.
And Putin assembled all the oligarchs of Russia, the people he made rich, in one room. And here it is. Here's the picture of it. To tell them that this is what Russia was going to do. And they all, if they didn't want to die, fall out of windows, they all had to get behind the invasion of Ukraine. This is the picture.
That's a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I mean, these are big, it's a country, and these are the oligarchs. These are all billionaires or millionaires. You assemble them all together. It's crazy.
Okay, look, let me jump in real quick. Again, so we're in a post-information age world, and you're talking about an incredible amount of reliance that didn't exist in Plato's time. If you like having a cell phone, support Ukraine. I know that sounds nonsensical, but the fact of the matter is that China will invade Taiwan in 2027 or 2028, and they will up their calendar if they see the United States doesn't support its allies and doesn't uphold its obligations. Because why not? Russia's demonstrating that the only power is at the end of a gun. So why not do what you want as long as you've got the military capability? It's incumbent on the United States to back NATO, push NATO to expand, and to back Ukraine in order to stop Russian imperialism. That's it.
Absolutely.
And the same thing, and the exact same thing with supporting Israel to prevent expansion in the Middle East as well is incredibly important. And if we don't do these things, then it's the dictators and the fascists that will in fact take over. Now, I'm not on the Trump as a fascist dictator bandwagon, but I'm very cautious with regard to his policy making as well. So there's a lot to talk about here.
Yeah, this is a big deal, and I'll try to get this Jake Bro. Jake Bro had a question answering session. This guy Jake is Broe is his first last name, and I might be able to find it. And the where he described, and the problem is I can find him in one way, but I can't find the particular YouTube I'm looking for. But here's the guy, and he did a YouTube about 2 weeks ago where he actually, Brian, he does the history of mankind thing. Okay. He's the one who does a beautiful job of describing how unique the American democracy was in the history of mankind, and the need to actually do exactly what you're saying, which is you have to keep the democracy, you have to fight. Okay, and you can't you can't think we can't slip into the dictatorship mode again, the imperial dictatorship mode again, because
it sounds trite. It sounds trite to say the only thing that empowers evil people is for good men to do nothing. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember the exact quote, but it's the truth. And so if we sit back and we don't support established democracies and countries yearning for democracy, then we're just opening the doors for fascism. That's right. That's the truth.
That's the truth.
I think it's the broken window philosophy. It's the thing is we let little things go, and then it all just gets worse and worse. We don't clamp down. Like Crimea. If somebody had reacted then, same if Obama had reacted properly, to the Syrian use of chemical weapons, and these things wouldn't get as bad as they do. They're just allowed to spread their influence because nobody is reacting at the tiny moment that could have been dealt with.
But then you've got the international policeman issue, and everyone looks to America for enforcement of all moral values. Bashar al-Assad kills hundreds of thousands of Syrians, and is America going to send troops? No. So at what point do we draw the line and say, now we're going to engage? And that's a tough one.
Right, but I mean, the whole thing about Syria began because of the overreaction of the Assad dictatorship. The original, dispute in Syria was simply some schoolboys who'd done some graffiti criticizing Assad were brutally dealt with, and then the people in the town got up and demonstrated against that, and Assad's brother sent in tanks, and the whole thing went went from bad to worse very quickly. Well, if the international community had reacted then at that point, maybe it wouldn't have it gone out of its bounds and collapsed everything in the area.
Well, yeah, but that's the point. Is so where do you intervene at the international level? Do you send in strike forces at graffiti? Do you send in strike forces at torturing low-level criminals?
Well, the
You
first
see what I
thing you
mean?
do is that you cancel the credit cards of the dictators' wives. That's the first start. I think you get elected just by doing that. Then you stop all their ability to do banking of any sort. and honestly, things will change.
Well, it depends on, so Andrew, it depends on the number of wives the dictator has.
Well,
that's a good
that
one
is a
there.
consideration too.
They need to cancel all their credit cards and send all of us a piece of it. Just a small percentage of whatever that credit card was issued for, the amount.
Yeah. So I think this is a good discussion. I think that this is we're entering a wild time now. It's very dangerous. It's extremely dangerous because the United States is it's now in violation of the Budapest Memorandum, and so it's siding with Russia right now, and it's showing imperialist. It wants to absorb Canada and absorb Panama and absorb Greenland. That's exactly what the activities after World War II were set up to stop. Because the deal is, okay, have disagreements, do things, fight each other, whatever, but the sovereignty and independence of and territorial boundaries need to be respected. And Bro, actually, I'll try to find Bro's description and might have a trial on that, because that's he's quite a good historian. If anybody doesn't know about Jack Bro, I showed y'all how to spell his name, and he's probably one of the best guys out there. He was a fire officer in a nuclear missile facility in the when he was in I can't remember if it was Army or Air Force, and he's got a very, very strong sense of ethics and morality and so forth and so on. And his thinking is very clear, and it's quite nice. And he brought all this into historical context, I think, in a way that was unique. I haven't seen it done as well as he did it. Now, of course, lost the YouTube where he said it, but I'll try to find it. So this sounds
I
great.
didn't know about this guy until today. This Jake Bro guy until today.
Yeah, he's real good. So you can almost pick off any of these things, and it doesn't take you long before you realize how good he is. I can try to share him again and try to.
I got his name wrote down.
Yeah,
I'm gonna check into him.
Yeah. So this is I have no. Can y'all hear this?
I don't hear it yet.
No.
You couldn't hear it?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna I did not properly turn on the sound on the sharing. And of course I've already lost that. So I'll try to do this later,
Okay.
and when I get this out right. But um, he's if you haven't seen him, just type Jake Bro and you'll get him. And almost any of his presentations is actually, I don't know of any of them that aren't really interesting. So we'll see y'all next Thursday.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
Robert,
good.
you said you had something to announce.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
So didn't you say you sent a message saying you had something to announce?
Oh, yeah. So there is so we need to have a clear understanding that people can't share invites with other people. And we're going to be taking we really do need people to have one email address and one PayPal account, and we're happy to have you involved, but we can't have situations where juries get taken over by people passing one invite around to multiple people.
right.
And so this is we're going to be taking actions over the next few weeks to try to ensure that. And it's not that we don't like anybody; it's that we just need to make sure that different people get chances on these trials. And if, to the extent that we can get more and more sponsors, we can do enough trials that everybody will be able to do as many trials as they want. Okay. But right now we don't have the sponsorship revenue that supports enough trials for the demand that we've got for trials, which is huge. And but that's a symptom of a company that's just starting up and found itself in a situation where there's a lot of demand and they can't produce enough supply.
Yeah. Bob, is that why on our moderator controls it shows a formal complaint underneath there? Like if we see
Yeah,
okay.
that's that kind of thing, and that'll affect the reputation score and so forth and so on.
Okay.
And but the main thing is that we do have a requirement that you cannot pass an invitation to somebody else. You can't take one invitation and have multiple people coming in on that one invitation that was sent to one person.
Right.
Okay, so sounds great. So we'll see y'all next week. Thanks, Andrew.
Bye.
Okay.